Hello friends, welcome back to Wow IAS. Welcome to this discussion on Vision Social Issues PT 365 discussion, and this is part 2 where we are going to continue with this chapter 1 of Women and Child. Right, now let's directly move on to the topic. So in this, the first one what we have today is review of Beijing plus 25. What is this Beijing plus 25? We need to understand this. This Beijing plus 25 is related to the gender equality. Right, so remember this Beijing plus 25 is related to gender equality, and to mark 25 years of adoption of this Beijing 25 platform, Beijing 25 declaration and platform for the action BFPA, the Ministry of Women and Child Development along with the National Commission for Women and UN Women organized a national consultation on the review of Beijing plus 25. Okay, so remember this. So actually what is this is, there were four conferences related to women. First one in Mexico in 1975, second one in Copenhagen in 1980, third one in Nairobi in 1985, and fourth one in Beijing 1995. So in all these conferences, some strategies, objectives and actions were adopted which are related to the gender equality. Okay, so 12 critical areas were observed, and these 12 critical areas, some strategies and objectives were designed. Okay, so this is called as Beijing Declaration and Beijing plus 25. So progress in the implementation of this Beijing 25 actually will be reviewed every 5 years by the Commission on Status of Women, CSW. Okay, and this is not a legally binding one but a guide for UN governments and the NGOs. Right, so you can see here for the first time it facilitated persistent discrimination against and the violation of rights of the girl child. And also it has addressed various issues like the child marriage, female infanticide, genital mutilation, the sex selection, etc. And if you see UN Commission on Status of the Woman, the CSW, Commission on Status of Women, it is a functional commission of the Economic and Social Council, which was established in 1946. Right, and also it is the principal global intergovernmental body exclusively dedicated to the promotion of gender equality and the women empowerment. So this is the exclusive body for that. And in 1996, this ECOA, this Economic and Social Council, it expanded the Commission's mandate for including implementation of the Beijing Declaration platform for action. And India got elected as the member for a 4-year term of 2021 to 2025. So remember these important things. Okay, now let's move on to the next topic. So next, the National Commission for Women is given. So this National Commission for Women, if you see, it is a statutory body which was established in 1992 under the National Commission for Women Act of 1990. Okay, so remember the National Commission for Women is a statutory body established under the National Commission for the Women Act of 1990, and it is composed of chairperson who is committed to the women's cause and 5 members from various fields and member secretary, C+5. And if you see the members, they are generally nominated by the central government, and it has mandate to safeguard women's rights which are granted by the constitution, to talk about women, to study and talk about women's problems and recommend to the government of India, and also evaluate status of the woman from time to time, and also funding and fighting cases related to the women rights violation. So all of these are the mandate. And about UN Women, if you see, it was established in 2010 for gender equality and women empowerment, and it makes SDGs a reality for women and girl worldwide. Okay, so this is about the UN Women. UN Women was established in 2010, and it was established for gender equality and women empowerment. Right, now let's move on to the next one. So next you have information about the child marriage. So recently the government has decided on revising minimum age of marriage for the girls based on the task force report of Jaya Jaitley. So remember, Jaya Jaitley report is related to the child marriage, remember this, and this is to examine motherhood age related matters and importance of lowering the maternal mortality rate and the improvement of nutritional levels and related issues. We have seen what is maternal mortality, okay, number of women deaths, okay, we have seen that. And evolution of child marriage law, if you see the child marriage law, so the first one is about the first act. It came in 1891. So it was the Age of Consent Act of 1891 which raised the age to consent for the sex from 10 years to 12 years. So back then child marriage used to be a very common phenomena, but later on with various legislations we actually made child marriage a crime. And in 1929, the Child Marriage Restraint Act of which is also known as the Sarda Act was passed. So here, under this Child Marriage Restraint Act, the minimum age for the girls was fixed to 14 years and for the boys it was 18 years. And this act was amended in 1978, where it changed the minimum age for the boys to 21 years and 18 for the girls respectively. And in 2006 we have another law called the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act. Okay, so where the age limits were revised to 18 years for girls and 21 years for boys respectively, and this was made a constant. Actually, this was already made in 1978 act, so later on this was continued. Okay, this was reiterated in fact, right? So this is all about the evolution of child marriage law and the minimum age for the consent. Okay, and the task force of this related to child marriage is related to Jaya Jaitly. Okay, Jaya Jaitly commission is related to the child marriage. So if you see here, some more provisions related to child marriage are given: the POCSO Act, the Section 375 of IPC, the Special Marriage Act of 1954. Okay, so the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act of 2006. So all these legal provisions are given. You can just pause and go through this. Okay, because this is not much important related to the exam, but sometimes there might be a statement, so you can just go through this once. Okay, you can just pause and go through it. You can even take a screenshot of it, right? Now let's move on to the next one. So next, the information is about the paternity leave. So recently, last year we have seen Virat Kohli. He has taken the paternity leave. Okay, so he has taken a gap from the duties from the Indian cricket team. Okay, so he has taken a leave. So that's why this was in news. Okay, so paternity leave, if you see, it is nothing but the paid leave for the fathers during the childbirth. Okay, so this paternity leave, if you see, it has no legal provisions. It has no legal provisions, and All India and Central Service Rules allows Government of India employees with less than 2 surviving children 15 days of paternity leave. So remember this: All India Central Civil Services Rules allow Government of India employees with less than 2 children. So minimum, so the maximum children for which they can take paternity leave is 2 children only, and up to 15 days of paternity leave is given. It is a paid leave. Okay, and it extends to child adoption as well. It is available till 6 months from the delivery date or adoption. And also, if you see in private organizations, there is no law, but all the major MNCs have some rules regarding this paternity leave. But if you see maternity leave is actually the time taken off by women to take care of their newborns, and this maternity leave is regulated by the Maternity Benefit Act of 2017. So it's a legal act. So it's legal. Or you can say it is backed by a law. The maternity leave is backed by a law, but the paternity leave has no legal provision. And the maternity leave is applicable to all major institutions, okay, where the number of employees are greater than 10 people. Okay, the number of employees are greater than 10. The rules of the Maternity Benefit Act will be applicable. And this maternity leave is applicable to the first two child. Only for the first two child the maternity leave is applicable, and the leave is about 26 weeks. So remember, the leave is about 26 weeks, and after 2 children, the paid leave of only 12 weeks will be given. But for 2 children, it is 26 weeks. For adopting mothers, 12 weeks of leave is granted for adopting mothers. And the eligibility, if you see, women must be employee of that firm for a minimum of 80 days in the last 12 months. Only then the maternity leave will be given, and it is mandatory for the employers to educate women about the maternity benefit during appointment. So this is all the information about maternity leaves. Okay. So next information is about the menstrual leave. So recently Zomato announced paid period leave policy for their employees. So that's why this was in news. So remember, which major food MNC has announced the period leave and policy for its employees? Then it is Zomato. So actually, if you see, this is not the first time that a company is giving a period leave for its employees. Bihar state government has similar rules. Bihar has 2 extra casual leaves per month for women employees for periods since 1992, which is a very good step. The menstruation benefit bill of 2017, okay, it was tabled in Lok Sabha in 2018, but it was not passed yet. Okay, and this provides women working in both public and private sector to get 2 days of paid menstrual leave every month, and also they should have some facilities at workplace for rest, right? So this is about the menstruation benefit bill of 2017, which was not passed, so it is still a bill. And next one is the child care leaves. So the child care leaves is nothing but leaves which are given to the parent to take care of the child. According to the All India Service Rules, women employees and single male parent with less than 2 surviving children are granted 730 days, that is 2 years of child care leave, and these 2 years can be opted in the first 18 years of the child. That means if the that has to be availed before the child gets 18 years. Okay, so out of the 730 days, that means out of 2 years, 1 year the employee will get full salary, whereas for the remaining 1 year 80% of salary will be given to the woman employee, and this can be availed before the child reaches 18 years. So remember this. This was introduced by the 6th Pay Commission. Earlier, the child care leaves were granted to women employees, but now even the single male employees are also given this child care leaves. And in 2019, the Defense Minister extended benefits of child care leave to single male service personnel as well. So the women employees will get this benefit, and also single male employee, okay, single male per parent, he also will get the benefits, right? Now let's move on to the next topic. So next one is about the child labor. So recently the convention number 182 of the International Labour Organization, the convention number 182. So this convention became the first international labour standard to achieve universal ratification, that is 187. All the 187 ILO members ratified this convention, the convention number 182. So if you see International Labour Organization, this organization was formed way back in 1919, and it brings together governments, employers and workers of the member states to set some labour standards and develop policies and devise programs. This is for the decent working standards of the employees for both men and women, and India is a founding member of ILO. Right? So there are 8 fundamental conventions of ILO. The first convention is Forced Labour Convention of 1930. The convention number 87, the Freedom of Association and Protection of the Right to Organize Convention 1948, the Right to Organize and Collectively Bargain Convention of 1949, the Equal Remuneration Convention of 1951, the Abolition of Forced Labour Convention 1957, the Discrimination, Employment and Occupation Convention 1958, the Minimum Age Convention 1973, the Worst Form of Child Labour Convention 1999. So all these conventions are the fundamental conventions of ILO, and India ratified all of them except 2, and those 2 are the conventions, okay, the Freedom of Association, Protection of the Right to Organize Convention, and Right to Organize and Collectively Bargain Convention. Okay, so these 2 conventions. So how to remember these 2? There is no need to remember all the conventions, but these 2 conventions we need to remember. So for example, remember this, like during the independence, like 1947, 48, 49, these are the years of turmoil. So during this time, 1948 and 1949, 2 conventions were passed. So these 2 conventions are not accepted by India, are not ratified by India, but rest of the conventions, the convention passed during 1930 because it was relatively stable during 1930. This convention was ratified. Later on, even after 1951, the conventions were adopted because India became a republic and things were relatively stable. So only during these 2 years when it was not stable, India did not accept. So you can just remember something like this. Okay, so guys, this is just for a technique to remember, that's it. Okay, now let's move on to the next one. So next one is about the ILO's convention. Okay, the convention number 182, which we have discussed now, that this convention was universally ratified by all the 187 ILO members. And this convention calls for prohibition and elimination of worst form of child labor, that is the slavery, serfdom and forced in the armed conflict, right? So if you see the status of the child labor, 7.3%, that is 10.1 million children, they are facing this issue of child labor. And in India, there are about 152 million, 7.3% are facing issue in India. And if you see this 1.3% of 10.1 million, that is approximately 152 million. Okay, 152 million children in India are facing this issue of child labor. And if you see in the child labor, 80% of children live in rural areas, whereas 20% live in urban areas. Okay, and about child labor, if you see, India has an act called the Child Labor Prohibition and Regulation Amendment Act of 2016, which prohibits engagement of children in the occupation of adolescent in hazardous occupation process. Right, and this imposes fine who employs or permit adolescents to work, and it allows child labor in family and family-owned enterprises or an artist in an audio-visual entertainment industry. That means only in the family businesses children can be made to work. Other than that, children cannot be made to work, and they will be treated as child labor, and people who follow this practice will be punished. Next, so some new categories of was created, like the adolescent. 14 to 18 year age group is considered as adolescent, and the adolescent group should not be employed in hazardous industry. They can be employed only in the non-hazardous industry, and what are hazardous industry was also defined in this law. Okay, so but below 14 years, no one should be employed, be it hazardous or non-hazardous, right? So remember, 7.3% of the child labor are currently there in India, which is a major portion. So this data you can use it in your mains answer writing as well. Now let's move on to the next one. So next, some information is given about the National Child Labour Project Scheme, this NCLP. So this National Child Labour Project Scheme, if you see, it's a central sector scheme under the Labour Ministry, and this is to eliminate all forms of child labour through identification and withdrawal of children in the project area from child labour. Okay. So the district project societies were set up in districts under the chairmanship of the district collector. And what is this NCLP project is basically when children are withdrawn from works. Okay, so when a complaint is given with regarding to the child labor, and children will be taken from the work site, so then these children who are withdrawn from the work, they will be put into this NCLP training centers, where the children are provided with the education, vocational training, etc. And this is called as NCLP scheme. So for this, there is a portal called the Pencil portal, and in this Pencil portal, people can give complaints. Okay, and this is basically mainly to monitor the NCLP project. Okay, and the definition of child actually varies according to different acts. For the POCSO Act, the child is someone who is less than 18 years. Okay, and in the Child Labour Act, a child is someone who is less than 14 years. In the Juvenile Justice Act, a child is someone who has less than 16 years. And in the Factories Act, children means below 15 years. So the definition of child varies according to different laws, right? Now let's move on to the next one. So here some more details are given with regard to child labor. If you see the constitutional provisions, Article 23 talks about the child trafficking. Article 24 talks about child labor. Okay, the prevention of child labor. Article 23 means prevention of trafficking. Article 39 talks about reducing abuse related to children. Reducing abuse related to children, and some schemes we have seen already, the NCLP, National Child Labour Protection Scheme, and the Pencil portal to implement this NCLP. We have seen that. And also we have different legislations like the Juvenile Justice Act of 2000, which is mainly to prohibit child labour in hazardous and bondage industries. And we have the Child Labour Amendment Act of 2016. We have the Factories Act of 1948, which prohibits the children less than 14 years. And also we have the Right to Education Act of 2009. So these are the various legislations, schemes and constitutional provisions related to the child labor. See, a question can directly be asked on some of this. Okay, so just try to remember this important data for the exam. Next one, women in Indian agriculture. So if you see, recently what is happening is the feminization of agriculture is being happening. That means the employment of women, the number of women who are involved in agriculture is increasing. So currently 32% of agricultural labor is women, and 55 to 66% of production is done by them. As per the Agri Census of 2015-16, the female operational land holdings has increased to 14% in 2015-16 against the 12.8% in 2010-11. That means the female land ownership is increasing, and also female agricultural participation is increasing. So this increase is mainly because of the migration of men to urban areas for work. So when the men are moving to urban areas for work, women who are there in the villages, they are carrying on these agricultural activities. Okay, so in this way, it's a good thing that the women ownership is increasing. But if you see, even today, it is only 14%. The women ownership is only still 14%, which is very less, right? So there are various benefits of increasing women ownership, like it brings some sense of security, self-confidence, increasing bargaining power of women, and also it improves the living conditions. It leads to better nutritional and control over food, improved health and educational outcomes, etc. Okay, so here some more data is given with regard to the women land rights. You can just pause and go through it. Okay, now let's move on to the next one. So next, some more steps are given with related to this women empowerment. So you have this Mahila Sashakti-karan Pariyojana, which is under the Ministry of Rural Development to empower women in agriculture by systematic investment to enhance the productivity and participation. And next one you have is the ICAR, the Central Institute for Women in Agriculture, Okay, it is actually the first institute towards gender related agricultural research. And next also you have some international conventions like agri clinic and agri business centers, integrated scheme of agri marketing, the submission of agricultural mechanization, the national food security mission. So these are the various international conventions, and these are this is the national project. Okay, so you can say these are the various steps taken by the government towards empowering women in agriculture. So next some important reports are given. So in this, the first one is the women and trade. So the women and trade women and trade role of trade is the report. This is for the promotion of women's equality, and this is published by the World Bank Group and WTO. Remember, women and trade role of trade report is published by World Bank Group, and it is the first major effort to quantify effect of trade on women. Because normally even women also get affected by trade, because normally when the trade increases, the development increases. And some other important reports, if you see, the World Bank releases reports like the ease of doing business, World Bank report, the global economic prospect report, etc. Next, World Trade Organization, if you see, the World Trade Statistics Review, World Trade Report. These two are the reports of the World Trade Organization. Remember this. And next one, you have the SDG Gender Index, which is to measure the gender equality, and this is released by the combined effect of various organizations like the African Women Development and Communication Network, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, International Women and Health Coalition, etc. Next one is Lost at Home report. This Lost at Home report is published by UNICEF, and it looks at the risk and challenges of the people who are displacing internally because of various issues like climate change or disasters, etc. In India, the total internal displacements in 2019 is expected to be around 5 million. That means approximately 50 lakh people were displaced because of the disasters. Okay, and also in some countries, because of the conflict and violence, also people move to other countries. For example, in countries like Syria, etc., where there is always tensions, people try to move to other countries, to the neighboring countries. Okay, so this is about the Lost at Home report, which is released by the UNICEF. So next, some other important news, if you see, India's first international women trade center was opened at Kerala in the district of Kochi, which is at Angamalai, Kochi, Kerala, which is in consonance with the SDG. And this is to accelerate women entrepreneurship and the gender parity. Next one, COVID-19 Shri Shakti Challenge, which was launched by My Government and UN Women. Remember this, which was launched in April 2020. This is to encourage and involve women-led startups for innovation solution to fight COVID-19 problem. Next one, Supreme Court has issued the mirror order in child custody case. So mirror order means, for example, if an order is given in India, if an order, let's take two countries A and B, okay. So in the country A, some order is given, okay. So some order is given to a person, and this person has to go to the court in country B, and this order has to be ratified by this court as well. That means this court B, also will ensure that the order given by court A will be followed. This is called as mirror order. So recently this mirror order was passed by Supreme Court, where the case is related to a child custody where father is based in Kenya and mother is based in India. So now the father has to get this mirror order from the Kenyan court so that the child will be protected. Now this Kenyan court will ensure that the child who is brought from India to Kenya will be protected, will be rescued if there is an issue. So this is mainly to safeguard the interest of the minor child and ensure both parents are equally bound in both states. So this is important because India is not part of this Hague Convention of 1980 to protect the children from harmful effect of abduction and detention internationally. Even Kenya is also not part of this. So this mirror order became a useful tool, right? So that's it, guys, for this lecture. So as you know, we are providing summaries for all of this PT365. You can go to our Telegram channel to find details regarding this. If you have any query, you can ask us in the comment box. We will definitely get back to you. I'll see you again in the next lecture. So do stay tuned to WOW IAS. Jai Hind.